with Ryan Ries from Southern California. This is Live with Ryan Ries. Post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanRies on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
All right, tonight we have Paul Gomez in studio, and this has actually been an interview that I've been wanting to do for a while now, Paul.
Thank you, Ryan.
Oh, scoot up. We got to get you on the mic over here.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
I was lounging. I'm so used to lounging with you, not having to be all cordial.
I know. Get up on the mic. Push up on it. So for a lot of you guys that are listening, I have Paul Gomez in studio, and I've known Paul since 1998 when I started working for the brands, for Circa Footwear and snowboard brands. During that time, you just left Billabong and you started working. You left with Bob Hurley and you guys started Hurley Clothing.
Yep.
And at that time, you were very involved, and you still are involved in the music industry. You had a lot to do with Vans Warped Tour and other record labels and all kinds of stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute. But I'm just going to say out of the gates, when I met you, it was an awesome time because you took me under your wing like a little brother at that time, and you were very inspirational for me. And, I was young. I think I was only like 22 years old or something.
21.
I was 21 or 22. I was
21 or 22.
21 or 22. I was very young. And it was cool because, you just took me in and I started traveling with you, going to events and stuff. And it's just awesome now, years later, we've actually become more close after, things have happened during those times, but we became like brothers now. And you still, I get to meet with you. You inspire me. You encourage me. You teach me things. And you know what? You're just amazing. You've been an awesome influence in my life. So this is awesome for you to be here.
Well, thanks for talking about that other Paul. I don't know what guy you're talking about.
No, I never told you this. You didn't know this stuff, but this is truly like how I feel.
Well, I feel the same way. Like it's been unique for me from the lens of just like the different iterations of Ryan Ries. Mm-hmm. Knowing your brother Raul for so long and seeing him come up in the game and start his own companies and do his own thing. And then you come up under your big brother, and then you had another brother. So, just coming up in the game. And as you were just walking around out there, I could see your struggles. Mm-hmm. I could see your challenges. And I would have to say in the very beginning, I probably wasn't the best influence because, I think we all kind of have a tendency to stray away from what our walk is. And when we live in that lifestyle and you live in that world and you see that stuff, you're trying to, manage your feet in two different ships.
Absolutely. Come forward a little more towards the mic.
So you're trying
like what it's saying, James, like the double-minded man.
Yeah. Well, this thing's crazy.
Yes.
So I just think from that lens, it's just seeing all that stuff. And you have the gift. And what I mean by the gift, you have the gift of the gab. Mm-hmm. You're the guy who can, like, a restaurant sold out when you were a kid, and you could walk in and I'm like, dude, it's sold out. You go, no worries, I'm going to get us a table. And you're like, next thing you know, we're sitting front row. Somehow you've weaseled your way into it, fandangled through everything you would do. Yeah. And your brother would always be stuttering, and you're like, boom, like right in there sliding. So my thought process, and thank you for that, is just looking at how to mentor people in life. I'm a high school dropout with dyslexia, and I moved out when I was 16. So it's just like I had to figure it out on my own. Mm-hmm. And kids these days don't really figure it out on your own. And I wasn't raised in a church background. I wasn't raised in a godly background. It's ironic. My aunt's downstairs. She's like a prayer warrior. She's
Irma. Everyone knows Irma around here.
Yeah, my Uncle Gilbert was big in the church. He passed away. My mom was really big in the churches. So,
but wait, really quick. So, what was the environment when you grew up? Like, what was the actual?
My Uncle Gilbert was crazy.
But wait, where were you from? Are you from?
I was originally born in Montebello. We lived in Boyle Heights, and we moved to La Habra.
Okay.
So moving on up from hood to hood.
Yeah.
And my parents, did good by us. My dad was really successful. And wasn't when we started. We were really poor, and then he worked his way up. And my mom found Christ. My dad pretended like he found Christ, but he lived a separate life.
Yeah.
So in turn he fell away, and it got really radical for a while towards the end. But we didn't have that. I'll just never forget the first time I came home. I might have been in 7th or 8th grade, and my Uncle Gilbert was a straight gangster. Yeah. Like, if anybody ever knew Uncle Gilbert here, like, he might have talked about it, but he was like straight gangster, white fence, like keys to the city, like he was gangster. And like
You would never know.
you would never know.
But that's what Christ does. He changes.
That's what Christ does. And when I first experienced it, I was like, I came in my house, there was never a Bible in our house. There was never went to church, never that stuff. And my Aunt Irma and my Uncle Gilbert were speaking in tongues.
Wow.
And people were freaking out. And I was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I hated everything it stood for. I hated it because I grew up in an alcoholic family. My parents drank, crazy parties, chaos in my house. Next thing I know, nothing I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
And they could give up alcohol. They could give up all this stuff, but they couldn't do it for their kids. They gave it for something I didn't understand.
Right.
So at that point in my life, I was just kind of like really rebelled.
How old are you at this point?
I'm probably like 13.
Got it.
So wait, 12, 13, like
Yeah,
seventh or
teenager.
eighth, seventh, eighth grade, just going into high school.
That's that age. Yep.
Yeah, and for me it was a challenge because I was high functioning dyslexic, and so to me I was the kid who went in the classrooms with the kids who wore helmets.
The special ed classes. I was in special ed my whole life.
Yeah, so I was the little yellow bus that I wouldn't ride the little yellow bus. I'd ride my bike, score, walk.
Right.
So it just kind of just how I had to transition through that and not understanding God or understanding what his path was for me. So then later in life, I ended up finding Christ probably when I was like 19.
How
18,
was that? Where was that encounter at?
Vineyard.
Who took you? How'd you end up in a church?
I forgot how it happened. I think I was at an event somewhere and somebody just kind of said, "Hey, you should check this out." And I got in trouble with the police.
Okay.
And it was like I was doing things you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And my friend was at a restaurant and overheard the police talking, and there was going to be an arrest that was going to go down, and I was part of that arrest. And I was like, my friend's like, "Hey, you're going to get busted. This is what's going on." So then I disappeared for a little bit, came back, and then my mom's like, "Hey, the police are here. They're looking for you. What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh." So I bailed, went to a friend's house, and then my mom called by the time, and they go, "The police are here. What's going on?" So I figured out a way to not go to jail.
Right.
And that was kind of a wake-up call for me. And I think one of my friends, I can't even remember at the time. It was.
So you're probably thinking like, I'm going to try to flip over a new leaf or something.
Yeah, it was just like, I think you always
Because
think.
you start thinking desperate when you're like, I'm going to go to jail.
Yeah, one of the
Gets real fast.
one of the old adages is that people always say to me when I try to share the word of God with people, it's like, "Oh, you find God in prison, you find him at war,
Yeah.
or you find him on your deathbed."
Right.
And for me, it just going there and understanding, and then at that point, I was still like trying to make ends meet, like party promoter. Kind of. That's why when I saw in you, it's like I was like party promoter. I was doing nightclubs. I was working at Quicksilver at the time.
Okay, so wait, when I first met you, because I used to go, really quick, I used to go to Billabong and buy clothes when I was a freshman in 8th grade.
Yep.
So that was like 1990, 89, 90. We used to go to Billabong.
You go. Your dad.
You were at Billabong.
I was
at
at
that
Billabong.
time.
I was at Billabong. So I was at Quicksilver.
Okay.
And then I left
Before that.
So I started working. I was sponsored by Quicksilver when I was 14 for surfing.
Okay. Okay.
And then when I was 16, I moved out and I tried to be a hack pro surfer.
Okay.
And at 17, my friend Danny Quat gave me a job running the surf team
At
Quicksilver. And then I left Quicksilver in
Because we actually used to get clothes from Quicksilver too when we were younger.
Yeah. And then I left Quicksilver in 1987.
Okay.
And I started working with Bob at Billabong. And I think that's kind of where everything really started to flourish with me because, Bob was really
Bob Hurley,
Bob
which is
Hurley
the owner.
was really grounded in the Word, and his wife's super grounded in the Word, and she's been, part of Calvary and Chuck Smith since the day I can remember.
Yeah.
Her kids were growing up in that way, and I think Quicksilver had there's a bit of a party community, and Billabong's mantra is, "If only a surfer knows a feeling."
Got
So
it.
it was kind of just tying back into it. So kind of found my walk there, and then in 1988, I met my wife. So I had a girlfriend for a long time before that, and then I met my wife in 1988, and I got married in 1989.
Okay.
And my wife was really grounded in the Word, and so she saw the different iterations of me from '89 till we've been married 30 years now.
Right.
So it's kind of just looking at that lens and how she kept me grounded and that type of stuff, even though I was, I didn't do the drugs. I got away from all that stuff. I tripped out that people were still doing that because to me, my childhood was surrounded by that stuff.
Right. So you didn't want any part of it. Almost
when I was a kid, I found my dad's youngest brother, my Uncle Sonny, we would go to prison and visit him. And he used to tell me how much he loved heroin.
Dang.
He would go, I love heroin. I love heroin more than I love my kids. And he goes, when I get out, there's an old movie. It's a running movie called Jericho Mile. It's filmed in San Quentin. My uncle's in it. And he's like, when I get out, man, it's the first thing I want to do. So he got out. And then we went to visit him. He was dead of a heroin. He was dead.
We've heard that story so many times.
Yeah. So it's just like that whole thing is like looking at it, kind of going,
You're like, forget that.
well, people just think they're invincible, and you see that whole thing. And as you grow older and you get in the music space and that type of stuff. So for me, I always had to make ends meet.
Right.
So I got married. When I asked my wife to marry, I made $8 an hour. I was really embarrassed to tell her how much I made.
When you married her, were you already doing parties and stuff at this time? Because I want to kind of talk about that transition.
I was still doing parties. I was doing that stuff.
So what parties were you doing during that time?
We were doing like a bunch of clubs, and like we did. I worked with a guy named John Seidel.
Okay.
He used to do a bunch of stuff called Power Tools and Dirtbox up in LA.
Okay.
And then we started doing stuff down here like Macombos, and there's actually a club right there in the parking lot, Hurley. We used to do Monday nights there, and then we did another one on Thursday nights.
So you were promoting like
I
club
would
nights?
just promoting club nights.
Yeah.
I was just going around going, hey, come check this out. Like at that point, it was like, it wasn't electronic. It was more DJ. It was more dance style.
Yeah. Well, it's just like club atmosphere at that time.
It kind of was like as breakdancing started to evolve, it's like got more into dancing, like
Right.
where you didn't have to spin on your head type stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so we started doing all that kind of stuff, and that made ends meet. And then I started working with bands, and I was always, because I stopped going to high school my sophomore year, and I loved music.
Yeah.
So I would go to LA, and I would count bands merchant for them. I'd just show up and they'd be there. Everybody knows the band loads in like at noon.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, hey, what's going on? Like, I love your band, this. And I'd just, hey, can I help? And I'd carry their merchant for them. I'd count their merch. I'd go, hey, I'll be here at the end of the night. I'll count your merch out. And I just started making friends with all these young bands. So like back then it was like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and all these different kinds of bands. And it was like Beastie Boys and all that kind of stuff when they were coming up. And those guys started becoming my friends. So the first time that Anthony Kiedis and Flea, Rick Rubin went surfing, Sonny Garcia and I took him. That's the first time they'd ever gone surfing. So it was like they were tripping out. So it just kind of merging the worlds. And then when I was at Billabong, they had Mike D wore a Billabong shirt on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Mike D from the Beastie Boys.
Mike D from the Beastie Boys. What? And I almost lost my job at Billabong because of it. Because they're like, why would you have some New York hip hop artist guy wear a Billabong shirt on a Rolling Stone? We're a surf company. We're not a New York hip hop company. And I was like, wow, I was kind of tripped out. And Bob was super tripped out. He was like, dude, what is this? Like, we were kind of just tripped out by the whole thing.
What the heck?
So we started looking at other opportunities, and we started doing more and more stuff in music. And
so you and Bob agreed more on like that.
Yeah, Bob's always had, like, if you look at the old movies we put out, like all the old surf movies, we had like Concrete Blonde in it. We had Social Distortion.
Yeah.
We had TSOL. We had,
Bob was, or I'm sorry, Hurley was more of like had more of like a rocker feel, or just more of like music. Was it like a clean surf?
No, it was a little bit more ingrained.
Gritty.
Yeah, and Bob had a really good love with music. And then I think our last movie we did, we were able to use Nirvana.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before they even blew up, we put Nirvana on one of our soundtracks.
Then you were working. Didn't you do some stuff with Kevin Lyman and?
I did with Kevin Lyman. So the first year the Warped Tour went out, we all went out together, and then it wasn't as successful as we thought. So the second year, Kevin Lyman was going to do the Warped Tour. He kind of pulled everyone together. So it was like, all the guys from Epitaph, everybody, we all kind of sat in a room and said, hey, can you all guys take a little bit of a reduction on this thing and get this thing going? Like, let's go out there and make this happen. So we went out, and it was very successful the second year. And then the third year going into what was it? I can't even remember.
That was a long time ago.
But we were just getting ready to launch Hurley. And I went out there, and Joe Sib, he's a comedian. He's awesome. If you're ever going to go see him, he's a pretty clean comedian. And Joe Sib he has a record label called Side One Dummy. And he came out there, and I was handing out wife beaters with Hurley logos on. He's like, dude, nobody wears wife. But I'm a cholo. I'm like, everyone wears wife beaters. So I was handing out wife beaters to everybody and put stickers on all. Like, so if you look at all there was like Hurley stickers on every stage.
Dude, I think I was actually there. I think I met you at that one.
Yeah, so we were putting Hurley stickers everywhere.
It was Blink. I think we went to go meet with Blink.
So Rick DeVoe, who's a really good friend of mine. So Rick, that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. Rick had a company called Big Dummy Productions. And so there was a movie that just came out recently, just won a bunch of awards, called The Momentum Generation. So it was with all the surfers, and there was a kid named Taylor Steele, and he made all these movies. Brett Gurewitz really got what he was trying to do, and he gave him all the Epitaph catalog for free. So he got to use Pennywise, Offspring, No Effects. Everybody got to use. And then Rick started putting these tours together. So we did the Focus Tour, the Momentum Tour. We did all these things. So we toured the nation with surf movies and punk rock bands.
Sick.
So that kind of, and then Rick at that time was just a small time promoter, and he was working he had his own independent company, and he got bought by Bill Silva Presents. At that time, Rick had Unwritten Law and Blink-182 trying to manage him. Like he was managing, working with him. And then Bill Silva's like, hey, I'm starting a management group. What are you going to do? And Rick's like, I'm bouncing. He took Blink with him. And there was kind of an argument, but he left Unwritten Law and took Blink with him. And then Blink turned into what Blink turned into. It was like a perfect storm. Yeah. So I was the first employee of Hurley. Yeah. So everybody worked at Billabong, and then I resigned and just went and started Hurley on my own with Bob. And that was like, everyone's like, oh, big I think I had like $50,000 in stickers and T-shirts to go around the world and make this thing happen. Yeah. So we did that, and it just was a perfect storm.
I know Blink was wearing this stuff, and it just
it was crazy because if you go Google back in history, so you would have to duct tape your logos on MTV, or they blur them out.
Oh yeah. I had that problem with Circa.
So you went through the problem with Circa and everything else. So Blink was opening the MTV Music Awards. And Rick, he's punk rock. Right before they walked on stage, he ripped the duct tape off their clothes. So they walked out on stage and they were wearing a Hurley opening. And this is before, and they're like playing. And it was like,
and it was live.
It was live, and it was like, it's Hurley. Like everyone's like, and that time we were like using the bright yellow shirts and the green. And boom, they're on stage wearing Hurley.
Done.
Right, and it was just like, and then we launched the brand. It was blowing up. We had surfers doing rad things, and and then the Warped Tour happened. Kevin Lyman was super heavily supportive, and it just blew up. I mean, we took big risks. Our sales team quit via Federal Express letter the day we sat them down and go, hey, we're going to start this brand. They all quit. But it was perfect because those were kind of all old dogs, and all the new dogs were their sub-reps. And anybody knows, if you work in the industry, sub-reps are the guys on the floor shaking hands. And the old guys are walking back and talking to the buyer, and they never pay attention to the kids on the floor. So it was like, we kind of always have that same momentum of how you would connect with kids on the floor. And it's bringing it full circle. That's where I see the Whosoevers, and that's what you were doing, because we fell off for a while, and I didn't even know that you got saved. And last time I saw you, you were pretty crazy and off the charts, and I was worried about you and your brother.
Last time I think I saw you was in Canada when I had pasta in my pants.
No, I saw you after pasta pants. That was a different night. And then
we'll talk about that off the air.
And then there's a moment in time when I was going to throw your brother off the balcony of his building.
Yes.
So there was some pretty heated conversation.
Okay, so listeners, with all that said, you have the background of what's going on with Paul. He's trying to work out his faith through this whole thing. And then some drama happens. Me and you get separated.
Yep.
Me and you never had a problem.
No, never.
But I was just losing my mind. I was going crazy. You were doing your thing, and we just fell off. And then we reconnected.
Yeah, it was crazy.
11 years ago.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Actually, no, I don't know.
It was a while ago.
It was like 6 years ago.
No, it was longer than that, because you had reached out to me because I didn't know you were saved. I didn't know any of the backstory.
Yeah.
And then you reached out to me because you were trying to do a music festival. Yes. And I was doing music festivals at the time. And and somehow somebody goes, hey, I know you're doing music festivals. Yes. We had a bunch of music festivals out there on the road. And we ended up, I don't know how we ended up getting together and talking. And then I kind of put some meetings together for you that kind of never came to fruition. But it just kind of I looked at where you were going, and I looked at what the Whosoevers was doing. And I just went, man, this is like Hurley back in the day. It's just people out there hitting the streets, putting stickers up, talking to the kids, not forgetting about the kids, trying to educate our elders to understand that, like, the kids are the future, and how we relate to them and how we speak to them, and make sure that they realize that following Christ is probably the most punk rock thing you're ever going to do in your life.
100%.
And I think from both where you and I sat, we thought the things that we were doing, living that rock star lifestyle, was like the most punk rock thing you could do, like being on private jets or doing all that kind of stuff and being at MTV. And you just find out how hollow and empty that is. Yeah. It just becomes really hollow and empty. So when that came together, it was like really interesting for me. And it kind of put me in check, because I think at that time, I left Hurley 8 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Then I went to Podium for a little bit. And then I was like,
you were at Podium at that
for 1 year.
Time.
Yeah,
DBS.
and I went in there and I went
When we met, you were revamping it.
Yeah, I was at Podium, and I just saw how lost some of the skaters were, how hard they were struggling. You know, they were kind of getting up. No, the only guy who was always really solid and really knew a positive direction was Day One. Day One was just really solid in who he was, but a lot of the other skaters, you know, they lived that really hard lifestyle of drinking and this, that, and the other. And I was like, wow, man, people are lost out here. And it's like, it was a really unique opportunity for me to step away from the industry. And I always had plan B. I've always had plan C. I've always had plan, you know, I just had to live my life by, you know, I don't have the education. You know, you gave me my lemon drop Bible. Yeah. And I struggle reading that every day. So, you know, I listen to scripture all day long. I listen to Chuck Smith. I listen to, you know, as much positive music as I possibly can. And then I find myself sometimes I'll get in a car and like, people are, what do you listen to? Most of us like, oh, they get all kind of bummed out. And then I'll put on like 60s, 70s, 80s music. That's kind of not where music's at today. Yeah. And I think the full circle of it all is like looking at where, you know, stepping away from everything is I got involved in a supplement company, and that was awesome. And then we had a huge family falling out because of it, and that's a whole nother off-camera story.
I want to jump in here for a second, because during this process, I saw a lot of transitions happening when I first met with you, and then that's when you got into supplements, and then, and even with your faith, like you were starting to come to church, and not you already going to church, but you started coming to Shine when we had Jay Adams there. Oh, yeah. That Shine studies, and you were growing. I could see like there was a transition, like you wanted more. It wasn't like surface, like you were trying to learn more. And I saw as you were growing, one day you just called me and said, "Hey, I need to get baptized." And I'm like, "All right." You're like, "Baptize me." I'm like, "All right, when?" "Today." I'm like, I got like 20 minutes right now before I have to bounce. "You got a pool?" "Yeah, I'm gonna be there." And then you were like, "I'm on my way." Remember that day?
Oh yeah, totally.
So I'm like, Crystal's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
Crystal was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, but because she was on.
The pool was freezing cold.
The kids. Yeah. It was in winter, and thank God we live in Southern California. And I'm like, she's like, "We got to go." I'm like, "No, Paul wants to get baptized." "Okay, well, when are you going to do it?" "Right now. He's coming to the pool. Right now. We're going to baptize him right now in the pool." And then you came over.
Dude, you prayed for me. We walked in the pool, you baptized me, and you prayed for me again. I'm not kidding. It probably took 3 minutes max. I was like, in, da-da-da-da, underwater, ba-ba-ba-ba. Dude, I got to bounce, got to go to the hospital. I'm like, I'm done, I'm good.
Because we had to go to the hospital. That's right. And I was like, well, we could go to the ocean and go do the whole thing. You're like, no, because that's when I knew God was doing something. Because you're like, no, dude, I want to get baptized right now, today. And because I know when I got baptized, I remember I was on the East Coast. I was meeting with Lacey from Flyleaf and her whole band when I first met her. And her husband, you know, I was a new Christian at that time, and her husband goes, "Hey," he's like, "you need to get baptized. There's just something about the water baptism." And he explained what it was. And I remember I was coming back I was actually where they were. They were in Texas at that time, and I was taking my connection, and I landed somewhere in my connection, and I called my dad, and I said, and it was winter. It was like January or something. I go, "Dad," I'm like, "I need to get baptized today." And I remember landing in Los Angeles, and I drove to their house, which was an hour out of my way. And I remember it was dead winter, and their pool was not heated. My pool was at least warm where I was at. This was like, water was like 50-something degrees, and I remember just stripping down to my boxers.
I was in my boxers.
And my dad just dunked me right there in the winter. But it was like, there was just something about it where I was like you. It's so funny. We have like these similarities. I was like, I'm getting baptized today.
Yeah, because you can't. It's interesting because when the baptism happened for me, it was like there was a lot of crazy stuff going on in my life, and I've had success business. Yeah. But I haven't always had success in faith.
Talk to me about that.
So you can look at everything. You can, if I was to take a step back, you look at all these people who are really wealthy and are these actors and all these things, but they're lost. And one of the things Ben Corson spoke this weekend at our church. And one of the things that
what church you go to?
I go to San Juan Calvary.
Oh,
John Randall.
Cool.
So John's on the road.
That's right. Duh, I go there.
You go there with me. Duh.
Sorry. I'm getting old.
Yeah, me too. So what he has said to me was, what blew my mind is, you know how Ben Corson speaks. It's like a rapper. Mm-hmm. He's going crazy. But one of the things he said to me, "Oh, this is happening, blah, blah." He goes, "Do you know that every 41 seconds somebody kills himself?"
Dang.
And he kind of just every 41 seconds somebody kills themselves. Yet we're tripping out on coronavirus, and he just goes on to the Ben Carson rap. And I was like, man, that hit me. And I was thinking about that because at one point I really was suffering through depression, and I used to be super down on people who killed themselves. I've had so many friends kill themselves, and so many things happen. I was like, sissies, they can't stick it out, this, that, and the other. And then it hit me one day. I was just like, I remember I was on a podcast, and it was a podcast up in Northern California, and I had to drive from that podcast, and I kind of just went through my whole life, and there was some profanity, but it was kind of like talking myself up a little bit and the whole trip and kind of everything, and then we were in this lawsuits and all this kind of crazy stuff going on in my life, and I was driving from Sacramento to Utah, and dude, something came over me, and I had a panic attack. I never had a panic attack in my life. And I was freaking out. So I pulled over on the side of the road, and I was like, I called my wife. I'm like, I can't breathe. I'm freaking out. Like, I was like, I'm tripping. I'm having a heart attack. I'm like going on. And she's like, no, where are you? Like, I don't know. I'm on the middle of the road somewhere. And like that road from
I've been on that road before.
But it's just the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I was like tripping. So I hung up the wife and I called my financial planner. I'm like, dude, I'm freaking out, blah, blah. He's like, you're fine. Like you can stop working right now. You're good. I'm like, but it's not about that. I'm not fine. Oh, I was freaking out. And then, I made it to where I had to go, and then I was in a car. I was kind of losing it. Then I ended up go checking myself in the hospital because I thought I was having. In a short amount of time, went to the hospital like 3 times thinking I was having a heart attack.
That's crazy.
Like I was just tripping out, and I was like so lost. And then we started connecting. That one day, I'm like, dude, I got to get baptized right now. And I
didn't even know the backstory.
Yeah, it's got to happen right now. Like it's something like I'm seriously considering just eating it. And I thought about your dad and his testimony. I was like, dude, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I was lay in bed and not be able to get out of bed. And I felt so bad for my wife because I've always been there, and I was like stuck.
Yeah.
I was super stuck, and I still get stuck. Like last night, I didn't sleep good, and I'm in Ezra right now. And sometimes when I'm having a bad night, I always turn on Chuck and listen to it. But like sometimes it doesn't work in that room. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not working. I'm freaking out. And
we know that, just for the listeners, we know that the scripture says, we've quoted this verse a million times on this station. It talks about Ephesians 6, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of the unseen world. We're in a spiritual, once you turn on the spirit life, that Holy Spirit life, then there's a wrestle between the good and the evil in our life. And the enemy, he wants to bring anxiety, he wants to bring bitterness, he wants to bring anger, he wants to bring depression, he wants to bring all these bouts, but we know that greater is he, Jesus Christ, that's in us than he that's in the world. And it's a spiritual battle, We know that the enemy, Satan, has come to steal, kill, and destroy, but Jesus says, I've come to give life abundantly. And the whole thing is Satan wants to get us off course from the purpose of how he's using us. And I know what God's been doing with you is God's been using you as a major voice in your life to a lot of celebrities, a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, businessmen, myself, people that run movements. You have a great reach, and God is using you in a powerful way to impact so many people. So what does the enemy want to do? He wants to get you off course. He wants you to just get off the path, because then everyone that you've been influencing will go, oh, this stuff must not be real. And that's what Satan wants to do, is he wants to discredit, get you off course. So people that are listening to your voice will get off course and just say, this couldn't be real. Just like that pastor that committed suicide a while ago.
Yeah.
It must not be real. No, it is real. It's just you can't give in to the enemy. But we're going to go to break in 1 minute, Paul. Listeners, check out the whosoevers.com. Go to the whosoevers.com. We got our app up there. We're on social media. If you want to send in questions, we'll answer them. Send a video question. You could just do it on Instagram. Send it to us. You could type out messages. Just contact us online. We tour the public school system. We go to Australia. Let's see, where are we going? We're going to Ecuador right now, Chile, Australia, Colombia, all through Central America, all around the United States. We want to go to Europe. We just got an invite to go to Uganda. That will be trippy. We've been to India. We'll go anywhere. Just contact us. Go to the whosoevers.com. Shoot us an email, and we'll set up a tour with you guys. Our mission is the Great Commission. What we've been talking about on the show is that people are dealing with depression, suicide, anxiety. They're like Paul said, people are lost. What we want to do is we want to introduce them to the God of the universe so they could turn that light switch on and then live that life that they were created for. We'll talk to you guys in 2 minutes right after the break.
With Ryan Ries coming up.
Is everything all right?
Call now. 1-888-564-6173. Or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
I think I speak for the entire administration when I say, whoop-de-doo.
Now, back to Live with Ryan Ries. Don't say we didn't warn you. Loud noises!
All right, we are back. I got Paul Gomez in the studio. If you've been listening to the first half of the show, your mouth has probably been dropping. This is awesome. I love bringing people that are in culture. They're Christians, but they're living their life in culture, shifting culture by their influence. So right before we went to the break, Paul, you were talking about how obviously you worked at Quicksilver for a while. Then you worked at Billabong, and you worked in you were doing music festivals, music industry, all kinds of crazy stuff. And you've just struggled with your faith back and forth. And that's relatable because anyone that's actually working in culture, you're always trying to find that balance. You're like, I love Jesus, but you're always getting drawn to the world. And you're like, it's always that constant balance with life. Even now, even with me, I'm always trying to balance everything. That's the whole key to life. And you never have it figured out. You're constantly fighting for the balance. But there was like a pivotal moment in your life where you were driving from a podcast you just did from like where, San Jose area or something?
I was driving from Sacramento,
Sac, up to Utah. And on the road, you started having this panic attack. Next thing you know, you went to the hospital a couple times. It was this anxiety attack that the enemy was bringing on. You called me, you said, Ryan, I need to get baptized, which we talked about the first half of the show.
Yeah.
We baptized you. And then what happened from that point?
The attacks got real.
So the enemy came in.
Oh yeah. Attacks got real. And it was interesting because before I wasn't prepared, this time I was prepared. I would call you a lot. I would call Sonny.
Yes.
I would call Sonny a lot. I have a friend, Craigie, who's uber successful. But at this time, I had some friends like you met. We did a trail run in Hawaii called the Ultimate Hawaiian Trail Run, and my friend Kai Garcia.
Yes.
He didn't know God.
Not at that time.
And the first time that he came in, he was dabbling and everything else. And Ryan used to do Shine on Thursday nights.
Yep.
And Ryan, I want to bring my friend Kai with me. And we went, we were going to go, and he's like, I'm not there. He goes, but my dad's teaching in San Clemente. So we took him to your dad.
Yeah, that's right.
We took him to your dad. And so it was my friend Kai, my friend Leaf, my friend Aaron, my friend Billy, who I just picked up, who I just met, who just got out, who just had come from a halfway house. He had OD'd. His name is Billy Quintaro. We call him Billy Q. They're all guys from Kauai. He used to be really gnarly dudes.
Okay, I remember you calling me about that. Yeah.
So we all went, and Kai was like tripping. He was like, whoa. He's getting all uncomfortable, and he's like, dude, I feel like I'm going to cry. I'm all, that's the Holy Spirit. And he's a big dude. He's
a monster.
He's a monster. He's a big human. He's Kyborg, and
Kyborg. That's a nickname.
Yeah. So he
looks like the Hulk.
Yeah. He's the sweetest guy. And we went there, and then the next that following Sunday, I took him to Pastor Pete's church.
Okay, sick.
Then Pastor Pete had known, because Pastor Pete lived in that that world, and Pastor Pete's a great surfer.
We've had Pete on the show. What's his last name again?
Cropsey.
We've had it. He's been on the show. You guys probably heard the interview.
So Pete Cropsey. So Kai went to his church, and Pete put him front row, and he was like, oh, he was freaking out and the whole thing, and then.
Now, by the way, Pete is he was like one of the top guys in the Vogels.
He was a sergeant of arms.
He was the sergeant of arms of the Vogel gang, the motorcycle gang.
Yeah.
So this guy's also a monster covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
So now here's Kai at this church.
And it's the same group of guys, all monster, all guys, none of them under 240 pounds. And Kai got saved.
So he got saved.
He got saved. It was a little bit later, and then
that's sick.
Kai was like, so when I kind of by default built this army of guys around me that were just like me, but getting newly engaged in Christ.
Yeah.
So it was really easy for me to be newly engaged with Christ with my friends who I'm super close, even though they live in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And we created this thing called Keepers of the Brotherhood. It's a thread that we have every morning. It comes up on our phone.
Dope.
And it just was this really unique thing. And then we just started doing really good stuff. Now Billy's like, he's solid. He goes and helps all the kids in prison in Kauai. He finds halfway houses for them to live when they get out. He teaches them scripture. Kai has a Bible study every Tuesday morning in his house.
Wait, Kai he does something with the youth too. He sent me pictures of
he does,
because he owns a CrossFit gym.
Well, no, that's Aaron. Aaron's big Aaron.
Oh, Kai. Sorry.
So
sorry.
Kai lives on Oahu. Aaron, we have a thing called the Keala Foundation. So we started a trail run that helps all the kids. So it's just kind of all this whole thing. So Kai has a Bible study Tuesday mornings. There's just a bunch of different things that really started coming together that took my admin and my time, focusing it towards helping.
Yeah.
Right. And we had you come out and speak to the kids, I think the second year of the trail run.
I'm not sure what year, but I was there with Crystal.
Yeah, you were there with Crystal. And it was just like looking at the whole lens and how I've been able to take those fears. And I'm currently in like a bunch of lawsuits and we're constantly getting sued. That's the wonderful state of California. And they just can sue you for anything. I could walk out here and say, Ryan offended me, and I could sue you. Fact. So
don't sue me.
I won't. You're my friend, but my friends have sued me. Actually,
exactly.
my family members have sued me, which is even more crazy.
Yeah. So
I learned through those guys who were the biggest, toughest, gnarliest guys on the planet who love God now to forgive. Wow. To it's so hard to get up every morning and you look at everybody who's attacking you, and you have to. Now I look at it and I'm like, man, what a sad life. Like I wish they have what I have. And even me having it, it's super hard to hold on to because it's faith, right?
So let's talk about unforgiveness or forgiveness, because you have these people that are driving you crazy where you bitter, anger, and all this stuff.
Oh.
How forgiving people is hard, especially when you've been done dirty.
Oh yeah,
how have you accomplished it?
I haven't.
Yeah,
that's the challenge.
You're working it out.
I'm working it out because every day there's there's crazy stuff that happens.
Like you ask for forgiveness, you think you forgive them, and then something else happens, all of a sudden it comes back.
Yeah, and I look at it from a lens of like, there's been personal attacks on my family. There's been, and then you go like threats, and then you go to the law and you go, hey, they're threatening my family, and they go, oh, they threatened it perfectly to where you can't do anything. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then I'm like, I know bad people. I could take care of this with one phone call, but I'm like, what good is that? Then it's one of the things that Fieldy taught me one time. Something bad happened with one of my daughters, and I was like, okay.
For the listeners, this is Fieldy, the bass player from Korn.
From Korn. I was tripping, and I called Fieldy, and Fieldy just immediately set me straight. He goes, you know what? God has one thing. And he goes, vengeance is mine, so saith the Lord. He goes, you really want to go against God? Mm-hmm. You really want to take that one thing that he has? You want to take vengeance into your hands? That's the one thing he says is mine. Vengeance is mine. So saith the Lord. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty scary. I don't want to stand there and go, I know the word, and that's the one kind of rule you don't want to break.
Yeah.
So looking at it now, I just really, like I said, looking at Paul.
In the Bible.
Yeah. Saul of Tarsus.
Yep.
Right? So now he's Paul. Think about how gnarly Saul of Tarsus was.
Okay, we'll give a little background for the listeners. Who is Saul? Or what's the story?
Saul was a guy who was just a gangster. He was going around killing people. Mm-hmm. He was rugged. He was thrashing people, and all of a sudden he came to Christ, and he was forgiven. And he came a name, and then he went and was heavily persecuted for following Christ every single day. Mm-hmm. And when they were going to let him out of jail, he said, "Now I'm going to stick around. Mm-hmm. There's more people to be saved." He didn't have that bitterness. He didn't have that anger. He had forgiveness for everyone who came against him. Mm-hmm. He wasn't angry. He wasn't. It was just, when I look at that story and I look at Job, all these things, they lost everything. Mm-hmm. They never lost their faith. So one of the things that I learned was like everything that I was hanging on to, and I think I told you this one day, I have this kind of mantra I've created in my life. Hope is less. People go, hope is less. I go, everything we're hanging on to, that car, this, that makes you feel hopeless. Because you're feeling like if I lose that, but once you let it go, you realize it made you feel hopeless. So letting things go, hope is having less. Mm-hmm. So when you travel to third world countries and you see, I'll never forget this one time I was in Fiji. My friend owns an island there, and there was this really aggressive shark. I'm like, every time we dive, the shark would come in. I'm going to kill that shark. I'm over it. And I went and caught a fish specifically to kill the shark. Right? Mm-hmm. So I came in, I put the fish down, and it was hit over by where the Fijians live on this island. And I came back and the fish was gone. I was like, dang, where'd my fish go? And the Fijians had taken it just to eat it. My fish was made for vengeance. Mm-hmm. Right? And then they got scolded for taking the fish that I was trying to kill somebody with. And I just looked at it as like, these people are the happiest people who are smiling. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to create vengeance on something that bothered me that could have fed somebody. Wow. And I said, they can keep the fish. I don't need to kill the shark. Yeah. It's not that important. So when you look at all that stuff, it was a fish, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have anything.
Yeah.
They have rice, fish, and a hut. Mm-hmm. If you ever go to Fiji, do you know what they have? They have a smile.
Yeah.
They have a smile every day. The people who have the least have the biggest smile. The people who have the most anxiety. Right? Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like I had this big house. I sold it.
I remember it.
I used to have these cars. I don't have them. Mm-hmm. I used to have all these different kind of things. And like, there's a funny little battle going on right now because I want a truck, and it was like, because I feel naked without a truck. I bought a little RAV4 hybrid so I could get good gas mileage.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm like, I don't have a truck. And like, so now it's a car payment thing. But it goes back to, it's like praying about it. And it's crazy because the car dealership keeps calling me and trying to make the deal. So at the end of the day, I look at it as like, I think God prunes us. I think life prunes us.
Yeah.
And I think the more we're pruned, the less we feel armored. And you taught me this a long time ago. We have to armor ourselves with his blood. Mm-hmm. We have to, it could get emotional thinking about it because like sin caused us to be not naked, right? So when Adam committed sin, we in turn felt shamed by walking around naked. So how do we not feel shamed? How do we not feel this way? And the only way path to heaven is through faith, right? Mm-hmm. So everything that I have ain't going with me.
Nope.
Every time you see a family lose a family member or lose a parent, it destroys a family. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they're taking the material items and they're trying to divvy
because everyone gets into lawsuits and they just start fighting.
They're trying to divvy them up, and you watch families get destroyed by material things. Yeah. So to me, I just looked at like my hope is less. Mm-hmm. My hopelessness is caused by more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So it's like we're a world of access. We have everything's on our fingertips. Everything's right there. We can have it now. I can call right now and we can have a pizza right outside that door and there's a droid dropping it off to us. There's no and it's all on credit and you don't have to pay me and this is what's going on. And now it's like you have everything's for free. We're going to pay off your college debt. And it was crazy. I put up a thing on Bernie Sanders on my thing here, just to get people, and all my rock star friends start chiming in and going off. I'm like, okay, let me put it to you this way. How about you don't take any more royalties? You give them to all the little bands, and you pay for them to go on tour. And then you step off the big stage and you go to the little stage and let them be on the big stage. I earned it.
But that's not the way
it works. Nothing's for free.
Yeah.
Right? So nothing's for free. So what are we putting our time and energy into? What is our endeavor? What are we looking towards every day? And for me, it's like, you turned me on to Chuck, and like, I've been trying to go through the Bible every day, because you and I are exactly the same. We text each other and it's cryptic. We're basically totally inept when it comes to writing, right? We're lemon drops without the drop on it. We're just lemons.
I'm always asking people to look at my text. Does this read right?
Yeah. So you look at that and you kind of
and then posting, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah. So you look at all of it and just kind of bringing it full circle is like, I've found that seeing my granddaughter, seeing my son find his way to Christ when he was struggled really hard, watching my daughters in the industries they work in, trying to figure out their way through Christ and how it comes together, and me not being angry, right? Me not like, this is how it is. Like, being loving when you're a guy like me is a challenge.
Big challenge.
Yeah, because my whole thing is like, I want to punch you in the face.
I understand.
Yeah, but it's like, I can't do that anymore because everyone knows jiu-jitsu and they'll probably choke me out. So my thought process is
I can't do it either because of the position I'm in.
Yeah, it's not. But a lot of times, like, what does God do every day to us? Yeah. He
Well, you don't want to be that angry guy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but at the end of the day, it's like a lot of things that Paul got punched in the face every single day, right?
And what did Jesus say? If someone slaps you, turn to the other cheek.
If someone sees you, give them everything.
Yeah.
Because it ain't going with you.
Yeah.
Right. So we hang on to these things that are so material, and it's like I think those are the biggest struggles in life, and especially now, like, you have children, I have grandkids, I have children, and you look at it and you kind of go, it's not about me anymore. Yeah. One of the greatest epiphanies I had was, and this was how everything kind of came to a head, is when I ran the marathon, and in the last 3 miles of the marathon, I'm like, I don't want anything. I just want to finish this marathon.
Yeah.
I don't want a car. I don't want a house. I don't want anything. I just want God and my family. That's all I want. That's all I need. Everything else is irrelevant. And I'm not kidding. I called my wife when I was done. I'm like, I want to sell the house. I want to sell the cars. I want to get rid of all my motorcycles. I don't want anything. I don't want anything. I drive a RAV4, which I'm belly aching about wanting a truck. My wife has her car. I don't have a motorcycle. I had 5 motorcycles at one point. I don't have an office. I work out of a coffee shop. I pretty much, I wear the same t-shirts I wear every day. I don't, my only addiction is surfboards, and I get those pretty cheap.
Yeah, you simplified.
Yeah, you simplified, but isn't that what God's pruning us to do anyways? We make our lives complicated when he's trying to make it simple.
Yeah.
And I think if I was to ponder everything in my life.
And it's not wrong, and just for the record, it's not bad to have, we're not talking about having money and being successful and having stuff. It's just when you're overdoing it, and you make your life more complicated when you have excess of stuff that doesn't even, you're getting anxiety over it. You know?
I think that's the thing with a walk, is like, when you find your walk in Christ, you look at the things that you have. There's nothing wrong with how, I love the fact that I have finance. I worked really hard for that. I'm not telling people not to work. Yeah. But how do you work and share your blessings and make sure that people see you as a godly man? Yeah. And I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you one thing. Anytime I go into a business situation, somebody tells me they're a Christian, you know what I do? Yeah. I run the other direction. I literally run the other direction, because if you have to tell me, then you're not. Yeah. Let your actions speak.
Just do business.
Just do business, right?
Exactly.
Character is going to be everything. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I was at a place and this guy was like, oh, he helped me help everything, this, that, and the other. And at the very end, he's like, everything got done. He goes, and I'm like, as soon as it got done, he's like, you're out of here. I'm like, oh, wow, really? And he goes, and you can sue me. And I was like, you can have it. It's all good. It's all good. And then he just went on these attacks. I'm like, it's all good, dude. It's all good. Like, if that's your pent up anger, and you have to look at anybody who's hating you, anyone who's talking bad on you, they don't have what we have. They don't have Christ in their life. They don't have that opportunity to just go, man, I don't want this. I don't want this anger. I don't want this pain. I want to love on people, but yet I don't know how. So I'm going to love the things that I have, and I'm going to do everything in my power to take those things away from somebody who has them, because I think that that's going to hurt them. But you can't take away a man's walk with Christ. The only person who can take that away from him is himself. By losing focus, by losing track, by struggling, insecurity, pornography, the list goes on. All the struggles. You watch it to this day. It's like you look at, like I love it. Like when you speak and you go to a church and you bring up pornography, and you just see everyone just start getting so uncomfortable, right? And I have a men's accountability group every Wednesday morning, and that's our accountability group is like, did your eyes wander? And that is the number one question. And I'm the youngest guy in the group, and I'm going to be 55, right? I'm the youngest Pastor Piecer, and that's the number one question that guys that are 15 to 20 years older than I am, they struggle with.
Yep.
That's it. And they were never, ever, that was never talked about, right? Now that it's talked about, it's like that's the number one question that people struggle with.
Yep.
It blows my mind.
Guys and girls.
Guys and girls.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you take everything full circle and just look at it and go, how do I divest? How do I love my wife in a way that I should? How do my eyes not wander? How do the things, what do I look to? Right?
And maybe there's someone listening going, well, what's wrong with pornography? Well, the whole deal is if you're watching porn, I used to watch porn. If you watch porn and you're married, you're basically not even looking at your wife. You're thinking about all the girls that you're watching on the screen. Oh, so you're basically having sex with the screen. And that's why God says, even if you even look on a girl with lust, you're committing adultery, because the whole thing is God has these guidelines set up so you're not cheating on your wife, because if you're having sex with your wife and you're thinking about other guys, other girls on the screen, why are you even married?
Yeah, and I think it becomes a challenge. Like I'm not gonna. My wife would probably be bummed, but like she walked in the room time and she caught me like looking at something I shouldn't be looking at. Yeah. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm all, "Thank you, you caught me."
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because it happens.
It happens, but it's like God putting those little moments in your life and putting you in check. It's like it's crazy. Like you're just like, and it's so wild out there because that social media. All that kind of, it's everywhere.
Dude, everywhere.
It's everywhere. And I have daughters that aren't teenagers anymore, but their friends, it's like,
yeah.
I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I was on because I used to follow these funny websites, and I was watching funny videos, and they snuck a hardcore porn scene in one of those funny videos.
And you know what's crazy? Is you just understand, you keep watching it.
You click it.
You click it, and you're just like...
Dude, I turned it on, and I told my wife, I go, porn just happened right now on my Instagram. I had to unfollow the account. But yeah. Crazy.
But it's crazy.
It'll hook you right back to where you were.
But those are the things that make us stumble the most.
Yeah.
But the things that make you stumble the most are the things that it's just, once again, it's wants. It's things you think you don't have. It's things that you're looking at. Like you look at a certain thing, you go, hey, if I have this, people are going to look at me a certain way. If people see me drive this snappy car, they're going to think I'm cool.
Yeah.
They're going to, like, my hair is like pure white. Mm-hmm. It was funny because I was talking to your brother and he's like, dude, my hair's getting all gray. I'm all good. It's like, just got to age with grace.
Heck yeah.
We don't know when it's going to come to an end.
Yeah.
So I just look forward to trying to be humble, be a leader. When I'm stumbling, before I stumble, catch myself, stay plugged in. Yeah. And just hopefully I can be a light in darkness for people. Mm-hmm. But it's hard. I'm not going to, if everyone's, I hate the warm and fuzzies. Yeah. I mean, you read the Bible, there's not a lot of warm and fuzzy in the Bible. Mm-mm. And people want to make it all ethereal and cool and all this stuff. It's real. And that's, to me, it's like, I'd rather be a battle-tested warrior in Christ than be a battle-tested warrior in the world, because what does that mean? There's always going to be a tougher guy in the street corner. Mm-hmm. There's nobody bigger and more awesome than God, and He loves you more than you could ever imagine. He can change your life. He's changed mine, and I struggle every day. And one thing I'll end on, because I know we're running low on time, my wife and I used to struggle with this. I always tell kids this: you're born with free will. Mm-hmm. And Ryan's dad's awesome. Whatever, I think my wife and I are awesome. we couldn't control our kids and what they do. I could give them all the best information, everything else. They have free will. They're going to use it for good or evil.
Yeah.
The world is evil. And God is good. And he loves you. You just have to plug into what's good and not let evil overtake you, because evil can come in any way, shape, or form, through depression, through anxiety, through wants, through looking at porn, through looking at everything. You have to realize that stuff is of the world, and that stuff will give you eternal death.
And the whole thing is that's what Satan wants to do, is he wants to get you caught up in that stuff. And then so you spend your whole life that you're supposed to live free and live that life that God created you for. But what happens, you get tripped in this stuff, and all that stuff comes with you through your whole life. So your whole life you're miserable, even though if you're flying around in private jets or own an island or whatever your fantasy is, or, a $20 million house down at the beach, you can have all that stuff. But if you have no peace and you're angry, you're bitter, you're addicted to whatever, your life stinks. And the devil's like, I got him. He's going after all this stuff. I gave him all of these things, but yet he's miserable.
Yeah, the attack's real, and it's coming. It comes every day, and you have to surround yourself with the right people to get through the attack.
So you get the right people around you. You find out who God created you for. God will chip away and get rid of all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with becoming successful and a millionaire or billionaire. Dude, go do it. You know what I mean? Go reach your dreams. But the whole thing is, we're calling you, or God's calling you, to live a free life and not be a slave, and simplify. You could simplify in that your lifestyle, and you'll produce much fruit, Jesus says.
God gives you the opportunity to bury it in the ground and hope that it grows, or you take it and you plant it and you make it successful. It's in Scripture.
It's that simple. All right, Paul, dude, I'm so stoked that we got the show finally happening.
Thumbs up.
I do want to plug the Whosoever's Movement. We tour to public high schools around the nation. Please contact us. We've been touring all over across the United States, Australia. We're going to be in Chile next in a week. We got Texas coming up, and other places. We want to come. We want to tour the schools. Please, if you want to donate, go to thewhosoevers.com. We have products up there that fund our movement. We have the app. I have punk rock Jesus stories I teach that are up there. We have all the past radio shows. Trying to think what else. Please contact us. Pray for us, because we want God to open up more stores. We went to 98 schools last year. We're trying to do 200 schools this year. We are expanding. So please pray for us. Donate. And just pray that God will continue to help us impact many students around the world. We love you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.
This has been Live with Ryan Ries. To connect or find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for Live with Ryan Ries.